Hi there, this is Joe Scully, Race Director with FPV Racing Events, and over the next little while I'm going to walk you through one of the major tools in my arsenal for drone racing around the world, and that is the scoring software solution, RC Scoring Pro. So sit back, relax, I'm going to show you all the features, all the settings that I use, and basically the program from start to finish, the first time you open it until when you're ready to crown your podium at your next race. We're going to focus predominantly on drone racing or FPV racing, but perhaps a few of the tips and tricks that I go through will help you out with RC car racing or whatever you require the premier scoring solution for all things RC and drone, RC Scoring Pro. Let's begin. So first we're going to open things up here with the program, and this is an active program, the one that I use set up on my actual scoring laptop. So it is it's going to have some stuff in here as we'll go through it. So let's begin, shall we? So this is the program. We've just opened it up here, and this is an actual working program. This is running on the database that I use for drone racing and is set up for drone racing, the last race that I used, but we will go through each and every setting from start to finish. First and foremost, we have to hook up our timing hardware. Now, we don't need to do that for demo purposes and for training purposes, but the first thing that I always do when I set it up is see whether our timing hardware is hooked up, and that is up in the top right hand corner here under My Laps. Now, mine is set up for the Immersion RC RSSI timing system known as Lap RF, and we connect via Ethernet. And had it been hooked up right now, it would be flashing green and a number, green and a number, green and a number, and that's how many times it's communicated with the gate. Now, if you are using infrared iLaps, you'd be not connected via Ethernet, you'd be connected via USB to serial, and you'd be looking for the correct port here. If it wasn't connected, you would hit Show Device Manager and scroll through your USB items and to see just what port it is on and reset your port that way. Now, if you use TrackMate, there is a little bit of a communication issue with TrackMate, and what we have done as a solution is we run the original TrackMate timing software program first on our program. We hook up our gate and we open up Iridium and basically use a test beacon to start the whole process. So build a heat or whatever and start the clock and have someone cross across the line. And then once your computer is talking with Iridium, you can close it and then reopen RC Scoring Pro, and it should come up here under the My Laps data. Now, one of the cool features in this program when they first did it, when they first launched it, was having up different track names. So ideally, you could travel venue to venue, and you could set up different tracks, and then you could scoot through whenever you go to a different location. Now, I strongly suggest that you don't use that feature, as cool as it is, and I just leave the track name up as FPV Racing Events or whatever you're working on. That doesn't print on any headers. Now, when I go into an event, I set up, we can pre-fill all of our entries. Like if today is Friday and our race is Saturday, we can actually go through and set it up accordingly. But if you are building your heat on the day of the race, first thing to check is that your race day is set to the appropriate day. And so today is Friday when I'm recording this video, so I'm going to drop that to Friday. And on our header, what it does print is what's in the printout header box. So what I will normally do is put the name of the race. So demo race for training is the name of this race. One of the other style points that I like to do as well is put a logo on the page. So it's all done on this main page where you'll have the name. And just skipping ahead here, give an example of what we're doing. We're populating the logo and the text here that'll print out on our heat sheets and our results as well. So back into our main tab, which is tracks and main, the start of the program. Just going to switch out this logo here for, I guess, anything else. yeah, we're gonna go with that. That is our new logo. Hit save, and on our heat sheets, our new logo and demo for race training is there. Beautiful. Next step that I usually do once I have my timing hardware hooked up, I am running house transponders. So when we're using RSSI timing, we have seat numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the corresponding data that it spews out, and that is the frequency and the transponder number. Now, if you are using RSSI timing, or you're providing the house transponders, so the infrared timers, in most cases, they would be provided on a heat-by-heat basis. This is where you'd build them under the transponders tab. So let's just add one transponder over here. This is going to be seat number 5, and I don't even know what that's going to be. Let's go 5800 and hit save. And so this is how we program our transponders if we're doing assigned transponders, which we use with RSSI timing, or when we do heats. So traditionally at races, when we're running I laps, we would run group A, group B, and alternate. Well, one is racing, the other group is using their the other group is loading theirs up, so they would have different transponder numbers. And when we build the heat, this will automatically assign to the different groups. So group A will be assigned, if you're seat 1, you'd get transponder 1, which is that number, seat 2, and so forth. If you're in group B, you would get that transponder number there. Now, because I'm going to set this up with just one set of house transponders, which would be my RSSI frequencies. I'm going to delete these out and just stick with one group of transponders. If the racers are using their own transponders, I will show you that coming up in a later step. But in this house transponders thing, that means every heat it will assign these unless the pilot has their own assigned transponder number. So if you were doing loaner transponders in this instance, and someone in heat 3 had their own transponder, it would load up and say, oh, this person has their own transponder, I'm not going to assign them that one. So next step, once we are ready to start inputting, I guess we can go through some of the finer settings. Racing. So we run a timer before the start of every race, which is 3 minutes in duration. That's going to be under this racing tab. I have mine set up so that it will actually talk us through at the 2.5 minute mark, the 2 minute mark, 1 minute mark, 30 seconds, and so forth. And it's just a countdown that runs through the PA. So the setting for that is under the race tab for 180. And I have it set up so it automatically starts the timer, it announces a time, but it doesn't automatically start the race. You can set it so that when it hits 0, it'll automatically start the race.
2:30 left.
In most instances, I just use that for a audible timer. And if you do have it so it's going to automatically start the race, you can also start the race in advance without waiting for the clock to expire. Start of race scoring delay, I leave that at 0 because I change it in the classes. Autosave races after 35 seconds. Reuse car numbers from your previous races. That one, when we're setting up heats and rounds, I always check off. It gives us an option later on in the program. And what that is so if someone is on seat number 3 in round 2 and you do a resort, it's going to do its best to keep that person on seat 3 the next round. And in drone racing, that's pretty important. You don't want people changing channels. And if it does change people, it will highlight it on the heat sheet. So reuse car numbers. Practice mode, I just kind of put some generic numbers in here. Minimum lap times of 8 seconds. You don't see any courses smaller than that. If someone's taken longer than a minute, There is an open practice mode that you can set up, and these would be the stats for it. How many laps, the pace is how many laps they would do in whatever time you set. So we usually go 3 minutes, and that's all pretty standard stuff. Printer, I always believe in using a printer, so this thing will automatically select your Windows printer. It's always good to double check. And what I do is I have it saved to PDF and to print the pace after each lap on printout. Those are the only two settings that I have there. If I'm doing a major race and I want to print out of every single sheet, then it has print one copy of race results, and you can actually check off for it to print after every single race. And that would be under this print mode right here. I just have it on save only to conserve paper. But if I wanted to print, you can save and print every single heat. We do that. And you can also set up, sometimes we'll do posting, so one for the race tractor, one for the posting. At RC car racing, I would have it set up at save and print and 2 copies. But in this instance, we're just going to leave it as save only, so it's not printing out when we get into our demo. Sounds, there's lots of sounds in here, but I only leave play sounds checked, so it will look at these options. And the start of the race, which is the good old start tone. There are other options. If you wanted to have it say when the race is over automatically, it can beep. You can change the waves. You can even put your own waves in there and whatnot.
You're done.
And you can also put in you're done, so forth. But I just leave it on the start of the race. And if you get moving screens around, which I often have, I use 2 monitors in this display. I'm only using one on my laptop. If something is missing, you can go right into this main screen, which is under tracks, form screen location, and you just hit these and it's going to reset all of your pop-ups onto your main screen. So now we're set to host a drone race. Now let's go to our next step, and that is to set up our classes. Now most races it's just one class. If you're running multiple, you can set them all up. What I will normally do is I just leave whatever class I'm working on, but these are all my different classes that I've set up over the use of using this database, and you can check off which ones you're going to use or in use, and just that one is going to be live. Instead of having like all the different classes in here, including the ones that come stock with it as examples, I just leave it as open, and that way when I get into the driver which is the pilot area, then I only have to worry about that class when I'm adding people. But if you wanted to have 2 classes, you go to the drivers, it would give me those 2 options there to add people into classes pretty quickly. I'm going to delete that. So we're going to set up a class here from scratch. We're going to call it the demo class. Put the pace 3 minutes. Minimum lap time. So we put this, usually put this in about 8 seconds, 10 seconds. Usually it depends on our start delay. Sometimes 10 seconds. What the minimum lap is if someone gets a lap time of 9 seconds, under the 10, whatever, it will not count it. So if someone doubles through the start-finish gate or gets a double read near that start-finish gate, that minimum lap time is going to be the savior. The next option is the start type. Now, 9 times out of 10, I'll do a time start. And what that means is when we start the race on the tone, everyone takes off and their clock starts. Now, at larger races, we will actually do an IFMAR or a staggered start. And what that means is we'll do the tone to start the clock, but the pilot's individual time is not going to start until they go through the start-finish gate. So I'm going to leave that on time. Now, most of our races in qualifying, we're going to go with minutes. 2 minutes as our heat length. And that is going to set us up in qualifying. When we go into our heads-up racing, where it's based on laps, you'll have to go back into this area and switch that back to laps when you're ready to switch formats and build your next round. So this is going to be 2 minutes here for qualifying. Number of pilots in heats we've set up here for 5 in our transponders, but I'm going to say 4. The A mains, B mains, C mains, if you're going to do ladder mains, you can tweak that data there, but it is not necessary. The other option here is the start delay. Now, the start delay is really important because if people are taking off right before the gate, you want to have the computer not count the time from the takeoff to the gate. Otherwise, they'll have like a 3-second lap as they go through the gate, and then the next lap will be real, even though it's lap 1 at 25 seconds. So I usually put this up somewhere about where my minimum lap time is. So start delay at 10 seconds to get people taken off, depending on the course size. And once we're at this point, we are set to start adding pilots. Pilots under the Drivers tab. So we're set now to start adding pilots into the race, into our demo class. So we're going to start things off here under this Drivers tab. Hit Add New Racer, and we'll put in his name, pilot number 1. Hit enter, saves them. His class is the demo class. If they have their own transponder number, you're going to put that in there. Because in this instance, I'm going to use RSSI timing, I'm going to leave that blank. And they're in. Now let's add another one. Pilot number 2 in the demo class. Pilot number 3. Add them into the demo class. Now I do have a lot of pilots here in this database, so I'm going to add another one. If they're already in your system, you can scroll to find them, or you can just search for them. Let's search for Code Red. So there's Code Red. I'm going to select his name over here, and you can see it populates his driver screen or his pilot screen. Now we need to add him into this demo class. So we need to, now that we have we didn't have to enter his name, he's already in the system, but he's not ready to go in this demo class. He's not registered to it. So we're going to click this Add Class, open up this screen, looks familiar. We hit the demo class, and done. So now the demo class is under his profile, and he is now in the race as well. I'm going to add this guy as well, doing the same method. And you just keep adding your pilots. Here I have 5 pilots. And I think I only wanted 4, so I'm going to remove 1. So in this screen, this shows us all the entries in the class. It shows me that there's 5. And this guy I just added, I'm going to remove him. He's not running today, it was a mistake, whatever. Boom, and there's my 4 pilots in the system. Now, in this screen here, if you were building for a race on Saturday, and today is Friday, you would actually, before you start, you would select the next day, or whichever day that you're going to be adding them in. So you can actually set up weeks in advance, and it will be saved under that day, which saves you some time. And that's under the driver screen. That one takes a little bit to remember sometimes. So I have my pilots entered. I only have 4 pilots here today. So now I'm ready to build up my first heat. So we go now into our heat main setup screen, and this is our first round. So we're going to hit this setup initial heats automatically. And so it is going to do its work, and it has assigned them those channels. And there's my heat sheet. Now, as you can see, it has red 1, red 2, red 3, red 4, because those are the transponders, the house transponders. Now, let's say we're using infrared, and so I have the loaner transponders, but this guy has his own transponder, pilot number 3. So we're going to go back to the driver screen. We're going to look him up. Pilot number 3. Here he is. Now we got to add a transponder to him. And so that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's his transponder number. We hit enter. That's now saved. And now when I hit display and hit races, you can see that now his transponder, every time that he competes, it'll be looking for his transponder number. Next up, so if you are trying to match your entries up, or you want to switch pilots around, in this screen right here, we can drag and drop. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in numerical order, ironically how their names are. So I'm just drag and drop the pilots 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the other thing that you can do, if obviously you're not just running one heat every single time, if you had multiple heats and you wanted to switch and flip-flop people around, you can do it in this screen. Or we can drag left and right into the different race numbers. This is round 1. This is race 1, race 2. So if I want to move pilot 3 to race number 2 and pilot 2 over to race number 2, and so now that's where they live in this round. And the alternative is to go to pop-up heats. And you can tell it how many heat windows you want it to pop up. I have it set for 6. Let's drop it down to 4. And now we can move them around that way. Still under heat main setup, I can hit display races, and there's my heat sheet again. Now this hasn't updated, but if I just click around, it will update there. Now let's say this is built, our heat's built, and now we have someone who shows up late. We have to add them. So go to the driver's screen, and I have this guy, pilot number 1. I'm going to change his name. So I've found him in my system, or you can add a new racer if it's a new guy. And I'm going to change this guy to pilot number 5. He is pilot number 5. So I've added him, or edited his name rather, and he's still not entered, but you can see that he is already in the system for running under the demo class. So we can double click his name right here, and now he's in. Go to our heat main setup, go to late race entry. It shows a column here in the late race entry, and then we tell it what heat we want to move them into. So we want to move him into heat number 1. And there he is. Now, if for some reason you completely mess this up, and you want to start over, you can actually set up initial heats automatically. This is what you do round 1, heat 1, to get into round 1, heat 1. When we go through our different heats after that, it'll be a little bit different. But we're going to hit set up initial heats automatically. It appears that it's already been set up. Do not run this. If you want to run this all over again, set it up again. Yes, I do, because I messed everything up, allegedly, though I never make mistakes. And you can see now that it's set things up here, it's actually split these pilots up into 2 heats, because I told it to do over, and it removed whatever order that I'd put them in the first time, because we're starting all over. Now the reason it's split into 2 heats is because in our classes, when we set that up, we told the program here number of pilots in heats 4. And so because there are more than 4, it split it up into groups of 3 and 2 to make your 5. Now you could go back and repeat those steps all over again and adjust it in the class tab, but 9 times out of 10 that was an intentional thing that you did and you want to fix it. So the fast way to fix it, we're going to put all 5 pilots in the same heat. I'm just going to drag these guys over here, put them back in sequential order. 3, 4, 5, close all. And now we're set to go racing. So we are set to go racing. We've built our 1 heat of 5 pilots. And we're going to go to the race screen. There's our clock timer that we have set up here to automatically work. I'm going to cancel out of it. Don't need that right now. And so here in this screen, this gives us a lot of information. And we have our start delay set at 10. Our minimum lap time is still set at 10. And this is going to be on a tone start. All this information I like to double check before I start every round, make sure that I'm doing exactly what I want to do. Now, one of the things that I love to do when qualifying is setting it up so it tracks their fastest 3 consecutive laps within the time frame. We're going to do that the next round. We're going to start this just as kind of like open practice. It's a practice round, and we're going to get things underway. Now, the information it shows is pilot name, their seat number, and their transponder number. In this case, frequency, and that was a hard-coded transponder, as this pilot has their own transponder in this instance. We're ready to start the race. We will go on the tone. Now, one of the things that we can do here when we are demoing is there is an option under the Open Practice tab in the main screen. This allows you to run the 2 screens simultaneously. Under this drop down, you're going to see Practice or Enable. Under the Practice tab, enable 8 fake signals. This has been a huge tool for me in learning how to use RC Scoring Pro, as I set up fake races and ran them over and over and over again to really put the program through its paces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 8 fake signals, and what this is going to be is like 8 random transponders crossing over our timing system. And there they are. So when you do get transponders it's not expecting, and a window like this pops up. We'll do this a lot for manual check-ins of transponders, so we can just drag and drop, and whatever one we'll assign, it will remember for the balance of the race. So these are the transponders that are coming up as fake signals here for practice. So I am going to assign these transponders to our 5 example pilots, just by dragging them over. Now we have 3 extra ones here that obviously we're using 8 fake signals for training. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this in this transponder pop-up to ignore these extra 3 for the next 5 minutes. Boom. All right, so now we are running. We've assigned these fake transponders to these 5 pilots. It's automatically checking in because those are coming in at random times. And I'm going to start the race. And you see like they're already starting to click in, but it's ignoring them because we have that 10-second delay. So this could be, you know, who was the first one across the line? I think it was pilot number 5 for a whole shot. And now we have our first lap over 10 seconds coming in, and it's going to post these lap times just like we're running a race. Now on the left hand or the far right hand side of the screen, we have this window, which I use a lot. And this is the where they're ranked right now. And this is set up for the number of laps that you can do in 2 minutes. And pilot number 3 and pilot number 5, that's their names, seat 3 and seat 5, they're on 10 lap paces right now. And this is going to rank. Now when you go round for round through the rounds, when they have a better effort or they're not performing as better as their stronger effort, it will update the stats here. We'll see that as we go on. But this is an overall class listing of up to the second statistics of how the race goes on. This is set up for my little laptop screen, so it's not as big as... It's not as big as I'd like it. Let's see here. It won't let me stretch it wider for some reason. That's awesome. So I'm just going to move that out of the way while this is happening. So underneath this window, when you have a full-size screen, you actually have a plus minus lap button. We can also do that by left and right clicking on the mouse. So sometimes you want to remove a lap that it's a fake lap. So pilot number 1, we're going to mess up his day. So right now it says he's done 7 laps, and we're going to erase a lap here. So we'll subtract a lap. And our 2 minutes has expired, and so now this race is rounding out. And there is the race done. Pilot number 5 in seat number 5 got 10 laps in 2:02, won the race. And that's going to be it in all. So now the race is over. I'm going to hit save. It's going to show me a little window of the result of that race and the fastest lap and so forth. And if we had another heat loaded, we're only running 1 heat here in this demo, but if we had another heat loaded, it would automatically be popping up onto the next race screen. However, we are now at the end of the round, and so this screen is popping up. Now, what this screen does is it allows us to set up the next round and run another round. So we're just going to do that real quick here. So new round, no resort, which means we want them to stay in their exact same seats. Want to reuse the car numbers so that they're on the same seats. And I'm just going to hit that, create round 2. Boom. So we are ready to go. Heat sheet remains the same. And it also is showing us their time from the first round here on this heat sheet. So let's hit race. So these 5 pilots, because we've assigned them the fake channels, they are checking in. And in just a second here, it's going to pop up those other numbers that we haven't assigned for the demo. This guy hasn't checked in.
2:30 left.
All right. Well, let's start the race and see what happens. Before we start the race, one thing that I like to do here, so this has loaded them up in their order as they are ranked in this heat so far. So if you just click this this tab right here, it'll put them back in their seat order before we start the race. And it basically resets all those check-ins as well when you do that. And there's the unknown that we were looking for. And let's start the race. Under the 10 seconds, it's ignoring those. And we're over the 10 seconds. We're off to the races. So opening laps coming in. This screen here, it also shows you the fastest lap in that heat. Gives you their best qualifying number so far. So that race is finished, and now we are good to go. No changes over here. They finished exactly the same way that they finished the first time. So let's set up a new round. No resort. Well, let's pretend that we go to set up this new round with resort, and we're like, oh dang, I didn't want to do that yet. So what we can do is we can just go through the paces and build the round. This is round number 3, but it's messed up. We don't want to do that. So we're going to go into our heat main setup screen, new round, and we want to delete round 3. So right here, it's going to allow us to do that. Delete round 3. Boom. 3 is now deleted. And now we want to set that up properly. New round, no resort, round 3. Boom. Open up the race screen. Let's go off to the races. And away we go. Now, if something happens and you want to restart the race, here we are. They're starting to post laps, but we're like, whoa, 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 stop everything. We hit this false start button. It'll blank out the race. And then we can restart it just by hitting save. False start and then start again. And away we go. If you forget to false start a race, you can actually go back to a race, even though the completed information is all there. Let's do that. Let's go back to round 2. So here's that race. We already ran it, and let's say we have to redo that entire race. We can actually load it up in the screen here, even though the results are there. We can hit start, and it's going to warn us and say round 2 has already been run. You want to rerun the race, and when you hit enter, it's going to hit the tone. And away we go. Those extra transponders are popping up, so I'm going to tell them to wait. We're not interested in that right now. So this time we've run it, we can see that pilot number 2 is already on pace to move up to about 3rd overall from their previous round effort. And now pilot number 2 has lost the pace. So they were on a 10-lap pace. Now they've dropped to a 9-lap pace. They've dropped, even though they're second in this heat, they are not moving anywhere overall. So it's gone back, it's reverted back to no changes over here, even though their pace time is a little bit better. They're still in the same ranking. So let's pretend this missed a lap. So I right click, add a lap. Right click, add a lap. So now pilot number 2 is on pace to move up 3 positions to 1st overall on the instant TQ list, which would move everyone down 1. Race is ending. And there's the end of our race. We hit save. We are good to go. So we can close out of this screen if we don't want to set up a round right now. But basically here with our hypothetical situation, we've just run a couple of heats of practice. And now we want to set up a new round. This round we're going to leave everyone in the same seats. And this one, though, we're going to do a fancy qualifier. And so it's going to be based on their fastest 3 consecutive laps within the 2 minutes. They're getting 10 laps, so we can actually make that 4 laps. I'll leave it with 3. Leave it with 3 laps. So it's their fastest 3. It could be their first 3, their last 3, their middle 3, any 3 consecutive laps. This is going to be their seed. Now, for this next round that we're loading. So new round, no resort. Now the problem is, as we build this round, it's going to be comparing against the stats from our 3 practice rounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build round number 4, new round, not resorting. Round 4 is going to be our first qualifier round. Now, because I don't want it to look at this data anymore, I'm going to delete those rounds out of the system. So new round, delete round 2. New round, delete round 3. And so now round 1, 2, and 3 are deleted. We only have the data from round number 4, which is going to be our first qualifier round. And now it is going to track our fastest 3 consecutive. So just like before, our race is populated. We are good to go. Let's start this race. And now it's still going to track all of their laps, but over here on the instant TQ, it is going to track their seed time, which is going to be displayed right here. So we haven't recorded 3 laps yet. Seat 2 and seat 5 are on lap number 3, about to record it. So there's 3 laps recorded for seat number 5 with 38.1, seat number 2 with a 40.2. You got a 48.4 now after 3. Now before I was adding laps by right-clicking, adding a lap, subtracting a lap. The other way you can do it is you can actually key press the seat number. So I'm going to key press seat number 2. And it counted the lap when I hit the keystroke, and then the check mark went off, and it ignored that because when the fake signal came through, it was actually 1.5 seconds after I'd keystroked, so it ignored that, and then got the next lap through. So you can see that was a hiccup there. It's what I wanted to have happen, but statistically made that next lap a longer one. And so the race is over there at 2 minutes, and it has calculated their seed time. Hit save. Let's go to qualifier number 2, which is round 5 for the day. Now let's say a code red is left for the day. One of the things that we can do is we can actually go right into, we're in round 5, heat 2. We can actually move him to the trash can. So he's not in this round anymore.
2:30 left.
And we've made a change to this active screen, so I can hit reload. He's gone. And now let's start the race. And that race is done. Hit save. Now, in the instance that you want to do a re-race, this is asking me to set up another round, so I'm canceling out of it. I'm going to close my race screen. So, round 5, we'll say pilot number 1 wants a re-race. And so we would go to the end of our order. In this instance, it's going to be heat number 2. And we're just going to drag this guy over here. And let's say we drag seat number 5 over here as well. I'm going to open the race screen. And so it's round 5, heat 2 that we're looking for, which is now open. And this is our re-race here in our qualifying round number 2. So it has our data from that we just ran, and we're going to hit start. Because it already has data, it thinks it's already been rerun. So I'm going to hit enter. And this is going to be their re-race. And it'll blank out their information. So we run the re-race, and pilot number 1, the better time, 35.5 on the re-race. We're going to hit save. Now, we have 2 options at the end of the round. One thing that we can do is we can drag them back into the race that they were in, something that I'll often do. And that way, if we're building a new round, round number 3, it'll remember it's just replicating the previous rounds. So we drag them back. Or if this is the end of the round and we're ready to set up our championship races and we don't really care, then we can just leave them where they are and it's going to use their data. So we're going to pretend that this is the end of qualifying. I'm just going to leave them there. I'm not going to drag them back to keep it conform. So let's set things up here like we're ready to go into our next round, which is our championship round. So new round. Now, if we're going to use the A main, B main, C main, and so forth, we would use the setup mains button, but we're going to set up to do elimination brackets. So we're going to hit new round with resort this time. And we want to make sure that it is ranked on seed time, which was our fastest 3 consecutive laps. Those are the times there. The traditional way is the number of laps that you did in the time allotted, which would be use fastest laps versus time. If you click that, it'll switch them around. We want to make sure that split qualifiers isn't checked. And this thing here is showing us how many pilots we want per heat. And so, boom, we hit OK. And there they are. Now, they've been set up here, and they're in their same seat number. If we built this, obviously, with more pilots, and it was unable to keep them on their same seat number, it's going to put an arrow beside the names, and that would signal that you're going to have to change. The pilot's going to have to change their channel or their seat number. It'd be a red arrow to the right. And just like before, if you wanted to move people around, you can just drag and drop, and they will go on that new seat. Now, because our last round I ran as a seating round, that's still checked, so we're going to have to uncheck that. And the other thing is, this is going to be heads-up racing. So we have to go back into our classes and tell it that, no, this is, in our demo class, it's not 2 minutes anymore. Now it's going to be laps. And it is going to be a 10-lap race. Make those changes, hit save, open the race screen, and just like before, it has a lap count this time though, and we're off to the races. Right now it's ranked in their qualifying order, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put them in seat order, and I'll hit start. So this will be a 10-lap heads-up race. And we'll pretend it's an elimination bracket where the top 2 move on. And as the race goes on, it counts down the number of laps that the leader has to do. So the leader is right now on lap number 3, is 8 laps ago. Now 7 laps ago, 3 laps are recorded. our leader is about to cross onto his final lap. Final lap for our leader. And the leader's done. 10 laps, 2:04. So pilot number 5 wins. Pilot number 3 is going to grab second. And pilot number 2 third. Pilot number 1 fourth. Going to hit save. And of course, this new round screen is coming up. I'm just going to close out of that. Go back to my heat main setup. So now we have to move ahead to the next race. The pilots that are advancing. So when we do a traditional double elimination bracket, the winners from race number 1 will go to like race number 5 or something, which is blank right now. Now I've already forgotten who won, so I'm going to open up the race screen and go back here. So it was 5 and 3. So 5 and 3 are moving up. So they're going to move, let's say, to race number 5. So pilot number 5, keep them on the same seat. And pilot number 3 are moving up to race number 5. And if it's double elimination, maybe pilot 2 and 1 are moving to race number 4. And we move on with our program. Some final tips here for style points. So when I want to look at my results, I have them set up here generically. You can set up your own location if you want to save it elsewhere, but all the results, I go to my C drive on my computer, RC Scoring Pro, or RC Scoring rather, results, today's date, and there's all the heat sheets, the results. To see the top qualifier list, we can go to classes and hit this TQ button, and it will pop up, and there is all the information. Now it is this was set up on your best 3 seed round, and if you want to make changes, you can actually go right in the screen here at any time and modify the data. So if it's they were based on their qualifier time, so you'd hit TQ, and you can actually go in there and change your lap time, whatever it is, and then hit recalculate. This is after running the race. So if this guy actually only did 9 laps, you can make all your changes right here, hit recalculate, and it'll shuffle people around. So usually qualifying and race results, I will change right in this screen. You can also make some changes as well inside of the race screen when you go to a race. You can go off this TQ button right here and make whatever changes that you need to make in that screen. Alternatively, you can actually make changes right off this button right here, going to the race screen after the race, and it'll pop up a window, and you can actually change by the pilot their round number, their number of laps that they completed. So if you're doing a lap count, that would be the quick way to change it there. And if you're doing seating and you want to change your TQ, you would hit it off this TQ, change your best 3 in your qual time. Well, hopefully that was a big help. If you have any questions, you can always reach me at fpvracingevents.com. My email is up there, scully@fpvracingevents.com. And basically, if you just do what we did today, even play along with the video, put on the enable fake signals, and just run some practice races, you can learn the program pretty quick. And the more you use it, the more little tricks that you can learn and pick up as you go along. And after years of running the program, I can make it stand on its head. And it's a valuable tool to running races efficiently, effectively. And I hope you enjoyed this look at RC Scoring Pro.